What's going on, everybody? I am here with round 2 from my Riley's Retro IRL 2010 format tournament. We have Darin on the left, Justin on the right, and I am super excited for this one. This is a really interesting matchup and a deck that we don't really see too often, that Justin is playing on the right with this Hippowdon deck. So you see the Hippopotas, however you pronounce it. If someone actually knows how to pronounce that, if you could let me know in the comments below, that'd be great, because I genuinely do not know how to pronounce that Pokemon. But super cool Pokemon. Hippowdon level X has the Sand Reset Pokepower, which is one of the, I think the only Pokepower we've ever seen that was a once per game use, and you could actually shuffle back in all cards in play back into the respective player's deck. So this does not include things like bench Pokemon or cards in the discard pile, but it counts things like basic energies that are attached, any tools that might be in play or stadiums. Cards like that would actually go back to the deck, so we might end up seeing that in this game, hopefully for Justin's sake, I would say. And then Darin on the left is playing Steelix. So both of these decks are going to be trying to do similar things. They both kind of have pretty tanky, beefy Pokemon that they don't want to let get knocked out, and they're going to be trying to dish out massive amounts of damage probably later in the game. These are both pretty slow decks that need a lot of setup to get going. And we see Darin is going to get the Call Energy onto the active Chansey, use that to get an Onix, and then they're just looking through the deck. Probably going to go another Onix, and we do see that here. So this deck really wants to get a couple Onix in play early so that you can evolve those, and your energy attachments are going to be really important with this deck. Steelix's big attacks cost 5 energy. It's actually 2 metal and triple colorless to use its, I think it's Gaia Crush is the big attack there. And then it also does have a means of accelerating. So it does have a 2 energy attack that does 30 damage and will accelerate energy from the discard pile into play. Meanwhile, Justin's going to use this Felicity's drawing, and you see Darin immediately reaching over to read what the Hippowdon does. Once again, this is not a super commonly seen deck. I don't think it ever really saw a ton of play even back in 2010. It's an archetype that I'm excited to build. Actually, this match inspired me to build this deck myself. So it's not a super commonly seen deck, and you can't really fault Darin for having no clue at all what the Hippowdon does. We do see the Luxury Ball going to go ahead and get that Steelix down. So this is going to be important. You want to get those Onixes evolved as early as you can, just to kind of protect them from random things. You know, a Warp Point would be pretty big at some point in the near future, since Darin does only have the 2 bench Pokemon. You'd have to sacrifice something to a Hippowdon at some point, but Hippowdon also is a pretty slow attacker. It's Save Sand. Doesn't really do a lot of damage until you can stack a bunch of fighting energies on it, and then it also will accelerate fighting energy from the discard pile. So Darin gets a Blissey evolved, might end up going for a return here just to get some more cards in hand. I do see a couple different supporter options. I think there's a Judge, Copycat. I think there's also a Pont in that hand. Professor Oak's New Theory. Just going to go with the Copycat. I think Justin has maybe 7 cards in hand or so, 6 or 7. So the Copycat's going to be decent here, refilling the hand, getting 6 more cards. And Darin definitely wants to seek energy. Would love to get some energy discarded to accelerate with the Steelix, or even just get them in the discard, or just even get them into play at all. You want to get energy onto that Steelix, especially a special metal energy, which I think they found, a couple of them looks like, and a Steelix. So that was a pretty good Copycat and could close out this turn with an attachment to the Steelix and a return. Only going to do 20 damage, but you do draw until you have 6 cards in hand. So not a terrible turn here from Darin, just kind of getting everything that they want. Considering where to put this special metal though, I guess you could go to the active here, and you just want to get this energy in the discard pile, and you also want to make sure that you draw more cards. I don't remember what Blissey's second attack does, but maybe just kind of setting up for that. And again, you don't want your Steelixes to take unnecessary damage. The whole point of the Steelix deck is to kind of tank and heal. And if you can avoid them taking unnecessary damage early, that's really big. Steelix does have 140 HP. And there's really not a lot in the game. I don't think there's anything other than hitting for weakness that can actually one-shot a Steelix. So as much as you can minimize taking that damage early in the game is ideal. So Darin just going to put a little bit more pressure out and going in with this Blissey. And Justin will grab a Roseanne's Research. Didn't quite see what that first card was. I think the glare is kind of killing me, but I think it might have been another Hippowdon. Yep, and a Fighting Energy, so going to get that fighting down onto the Hippowdon. Actually just going to retreat. This makes sense since you are able to accelerate the energy with Save Sand. So we see the Save Sand coming in, doing 70 damage. I think I should actually do 80 because of weakness, since the Blissey is weak to fighting. And Darin once again going to read the Hippowdon. It does do 80. The special metal does not actually reduce damage done to non-metal Pokemon in this format. It did in previous formats, but no longer does not reduce the damage dealt to non-metal Pokemon if it's still attached to Pokemon. So we'll see what Darin can get. Just going to get the special metal down to Steelix and just a return here. That is not the best turn from Darin. I didn't quite see what they had in hand. Maybe there was something, maybe they're just kind of waiting. I'm not quite sure what for, but I did see a Moo Milk trying to heal up this Hippowdon, and this is again going to be a kind of back and forth between these two decks of trying to stick damage on each other since they both play lots of healing cards. You see in Justin's hand there are Life Herbs, already played the Moo Milk, and actually both of these decks play copies of both of those cards. Darin definitely has more of a tank and heal strategy between the Blissey and the special metals, and I think that's going to be what really does what really kind of makes the matchup a little bit different at that point is that Darin's strategy is very, very focused on just reducing damage, healing, and I think Justin's is kind of a little bit more as a side on that one. I think it's kind of more to give you time to get your Hippowdon set up with a bunch of energy. You can use that sand reset and then start swinging for big damage. This is not going to be a fast matchup by any means, so we'll see what Justin can get here. And it's really big that Justin was able to get this Clay Doll down to keep the draws moving, that Cosmic Power being used to draw up to 6, and we get another Fighting Energy attached to Hippowdon, takes the knockout on the Blissey, but this is kind of what Darin wanted. The energy now goes to the discard pile where it can be accelerated with Steelix's first attack, get back an energy from the discard pile, probably just going to take another metal. And they do have a Judge in hand, so if they had this in the hand the turn previous, I'm a little bit curious why it wasn't played, because Justin didn't have the Clay Doll in play yet, which means that the Judge could have been really impactful, maybe kept Justin from finding any way to get that Clay Doll. But now the Judge doesn't really set Justin back too much, since they're able to just use Clay Doll immediately, draw until they have 6 cards in hand, and the Judge isn't going to hurt them too badly. I think really all Justin wants on the following turn is maybe some more heal, and then at some point we're going to want to find that Hippowdon level X, but this is another interaction, kind of a game of chicken that we're going to want to see here from Justin, is that using that sand reset, since it's a once per game effect, it's kind of like a GX attack or a V-Star power in some of the more modern formats. You have to really time it correctly, and you have to really use it at the right time to kind of swing the tempo back into your favor. So Darin is going to find an Expert Belt and accelerate the energy, that third special metal, to the active Steelix. Now the Steelix has 140 HP plus the 20 from Expert Belt, and it's also reducing damage dealt to it by 30. So if you think about it, it has effectively 190 HP. That is a big tanky Steelix, as a big boy. Justin going to use the Life Herbs, again trying to heal out of range, but that Gaia Crush, I think that's the attack from Steelix. Really putting myself on the spot with remembering all of these attack names, but that attack will do 100 damage flat, plus the Expert Belt will do 120, so I feel like you might just want to give up on the Hippowdon. I can't quite see how much damage is on Justin's active. I think at some point in this game I actually asked them to switch dice so I could see a little bit better, because this is so small on the screen it's hard to see. Meanwhile, Darin does get a Moo Moo Milk and is able to heal off some damage. I think there's the, yeah, we switched the dice here. Because it's really hard to see the ones from the, whatever the elite trainer boxes or whatever that have those really tiny, like they say the number, but they're really tiny. They don't look as good on camera. So I was glad to have gotten these very nice dice from my friend Jay, who's actually helping me run these tournaments. So again, shout out to Jay. You know, I see a warp point. Interesting. Okay, this is a really cool play. So we see the warp point bringing up the Claydol, and then a Stark Mountain. So this actually allows you to move a fighting energy from one of your Pokemon to another of your Pokemon in play. So we actually saw the attach from hand to the Claydol, and then the Stark Mountain to move the fighting energy up to the Claydol to retreat it. So this is a good move from Justin, being able to kind of just ignore the big Steelix. And I think this is going to be really strong if Justin can knock out this Steelix. I think it kind of might force Darin to abandon this active Steelix, go all in on the benched one with all the medals and the expert belt, and then at some point Justin can kind of just go into the Hippowdon and sand reset it and then just strand it with no energy. But first you got to deal with this active Steelix. Again, I don't think there's any energy in Darin's discard pile at this point, or if there aren't any, you know, aren't going to be any special medals in there. So I think Darin's going to be looking to maybe just keep setting up this bench Steelix. I'm not really sure there's much you want to do with this active. It is kind of set up to go down unless you fully heal it, which I don't think you necessarily want to devote heal cards to a Pokemon that's just going to get knocked out. And I think Darin just passed here. So now Justin's going to get even more time to get more energy in play, set up the board a little bit more. And I think the save sand does have to accelerate the energy. I was like, I'm not sure if this is a knockout, but definitely it did 80 before. So, and here's Darin with the second call energy, going to get the knockout, discard the stadium too, which is not irrelevant, and take the knockout on this Hippowdon. And I think we're just going to see, I think from Justin, what you really want to do this turn is what we see right in hand, right at the top of that hand, is the Hippowdon level X. Use this sand reset. I have to think that's the strategy for Justin. And here it comes, the big boy. Darin once again reading all of Justin's cards. Like I said, this is not a very common deck. I think it's a pretty accepted that it is not the best archetype. And we did see the sand reset, so huge moves here from Justin. I did have to do a couple cuts in this video. You'll notice a little bit of jump cuts there. We did have to confirm with the compendium whether or not sand reset did shuffle cards from the discard pile back in, because it doesn't actually say on the card, it just says all cards in play. So we did have to actually check the compendium to ensure we were getting that one right. But yes, it does just shuffle back all cards in play that are not Pokemon. So you see the expert belt going back to the deck. You saw all of the energy going back to the deck. And this is really, really significant for Darin because they lose all of the energy, but it doesn't go to the discard pile, it goes to the deck, where if it was in the discard pile, they could just immediately accelerate it back into play with Steelix's first attack. This way, you have to manually attach, you have to find the energies again, and then also discard them or just keep attaching them. And Justin is going to just keep pressuring at this point. However, Justin did whiff an attack last turn, so the strategy with Hippowdon here is that you want to sand reset, get all of the energy from your opponent's board back into their deck. It also shuffles your energy back, but then you can use the save sand attack, which accelerates fighting energy from your own discard pile onto the Hippowdon while also dealing damage. And Justin not being able to do that meant not only do they lose out on that damage, they also lose out on accelerating more energy into play to use the bigger attacks from Hippowdon. But you aren't putting out any pressure at that same time. So while that was a really good turn from Justin, you're not able to maximize its potential when you whiff the attack like that, which is a little bit unfortunate. I'm not sure if they just didn't have an out to the energy. Maybe like a Roseanne's or something would have been big, just to get an energy in play. Even just any energy down would have been big. And here's the Roseanne, speaking of which. But Darin's last turn was also not that great. We just saw the Uxie using setup, and no energy in play from Darin is also not great, and no replacement Onyx either could be huge. And if this Steelix goes down in the next turn or two, Darin's board is not looking very strong. It's the one big difference in the two boards here, is that Justin's board is much more developed. There's a main attacker with no damage on it. You have another Hippopotas, baby hippo, I'm going to call him, on the bench, ready to evolve at some point. And you have your cosmic power to keep drawing cards. So Justin's board is looking a lot better. You're not putting out a ton of pressure with just the save sand. I think it only did 40 damage. Not putting out a ton of pressure, but you're at least getting more energy in play. And now just another pass from Darin. We see things like Pokemon communication and engineers adjustments in hand, but you can't play Pokemon communication with no Pokemon in hand. You can't play engineers with no energy in hand. Just a really, really awkward and unfortunate circumstance from Darin here. Wisely not attaching the expert belt. That would be really bad, to just let your Steelix give up 2 prizes. Even though you can get the HP boost to keep it around longer, you really don't want to give up 2 prizes to Justin at this point. So wise to not attach that. But definitely going to be looking to get some more Pokemon in play on the following turns. But Justin is going to keep trucking, going to get another Hippowdon, another Hippowdon on the bench. And we see the save sand to bring it up to 4 energy on this Hippowdon. And now we can start going for some bigger attacks from Justin. Darin gonna throw down the copycat. I think Justin probably has like 5 or 6 cards in hand after the cosmic power. But yeah, again, we're just looking for an out to an Onyx would be great. Energy to commit somewhere on the board would be good as well. Even just putting it on the Uxie to give you a pivot when the Steelix gets knocked out would be solid. And I mean, you're really just kind of looking for things in the future. We did find a metal energy. I think there's an engineer's, a haunt, and another metal energy in hand. So we are at least going to be able to keep playing the game from Darin's side. And back over to Justin. See what they have. I mean, we got the big beefy boy, and I am not well versed in Hippowdon level X's attacks or Hippowdon's attacks. I know this one just does bench damage to I think just to 2 different Pokemon, or to all Pokemon in play or something like that. But we did see 10 damage go onto that Uxie and the knockout taken. So Darin is just left with Uxie against the world. And we could do the honorable thing and Psychic Restore to lose yourself the game. But Darin definitely has avenues back in this game, right? Justin is only at 3 prizes. So still needs to take 3 more knockouts. If you find an Onyx this turn, or even just something to put on your bench, you still do have time. If you're able to get into 1 Steelix, sometimes that's all you need to win a game with this Steelix deck, is get 1 Steelix, 1 expert belt on it, and just all of your special metals, heal it as much as you can, and never let it get knocked out. So even though Justin could go down to 1 single prize, it does not necessarily mean that Justin is going to win the game. You still need to, take that final knockout. And now that Sand Reset is gone, that's the biggest kind of answer to a really big Steelix. So if Darin is able to get a Steelix powered up at any point in the future, that could just be their avenue back into the game. And they did find the call energy. So we're going to get another Chansey down and an Onyx. And it's really important to note that the only 3 Pokemon in play here, the Uxie can go down, that Chansey or a future Blissey could go down, but then once again, Justin would have that 1 prize left, and we could have that situation of a single Steelix just kind of steamrolling the final few prizes. But Darin's got to find it. Got to find the Steelix, got to find the DCE, got to find all the necessary pieces and the energies and everything to ensure that we're, finding the avenue back into this game. But Justin's not going to give up. Not going to give up the pressure here. And we saw again, I don't remember the attack names, but this was the one that does damage to, I think it's to 2 different Pokemon. Not sure why the damage is off the Uxie there. Okay, I'm like, why? It definitely doesn't do that. I know that much. And I think it's just 40 snipe to 2 Pokemon, I guess, is what it looks like here. Which, I'm not sure. I understand where Justin's coming from here. I almost would have preferred just taking the prize. I guess you do kind of threaten to just knock out this Onix over 2 turns, but then we also did commit the energy to the bench Hippowdon, so I'm not sure if you have to discard the 2 energy. If you would attach to the active and had 5 energy, you discard 2, go down to 3, and then the next turn you can just attach again and use the attack one more time to discard 2 energy. So I think it does require 4 energy. So I'm not sure I love that line. I think it might have been better to, if you're going to attach to the bench, just knock out the Uxie, because this Uxie can Psychic Restore itself out of play. Excuse me, or don't attach to the bench and attach to the active, and then you can just knock it out, keep the or attach to the active and hit the 2 bench Pokemon, set up for a second attack. So I'm not sure I loved that line from Justin, but still in a pretty good spot. I think Darin did just use Psychic Restore for 20 damage, so not putting out a ton of pressure right back. Also got an energy down on the Onix and did use the Onix's Pokebody. This actually was errated, so the Onix technically says whenever you attach an energy to one of your Pokemon, heal 10 damage from it, but I think they errated it to just be itself, so when you attach energy to itself, it heals from itself. Which is a big difference, because if you had 4 of these Onix, or I guess 3 of these Onixes in play, and 1 Steelix, every time you attach an energy, you would heal from the Pokemon you attach to. So big difference from just itself. Meanwhile, we see this save sand here, but I think it was not a knockout. I think it was 10 damage short, only does 50 damage. Justin did see the prize. This is not a major regional or anything like that. So at this point, Justin just saw the card. We obviously knew which card it was since it was still in their hand. And I was able to just reveal it, shuffle up the prizes, and no harm, no foul. But it is pretty important that this whiffed the KO, because now you might lose access to this easy knockout. And Darin is going to get a bunch of things in play this turn. Have the Expert Belt, the DCEs already on that Steelix. Found the Steelix itself, and found a Blissey too, so we can start to heal off this Steelix. And then we're going to see a first attack for 50 damage because of the Expert Belt bonus, and also accelerating more energy in play. Did have to indicate that this judge was not played. It was discarded with Nurse Call, Blissey's Pokepower, which will heal, I think it's just 20 from the active Steelix. And again, you can really see now the strategy for the Steelix deck, because you use things like Nurse Call, you use your healing trainer cards like Life Herb and Moo Moo Milk, and then you just tank with the Expert Belt and Special Metal Energy, easy for you to say. And that's really kind of, again, Darin's avenue back in this game, is to just make one Steelix go the distance. So Justin had a really funny question here. I remember this interaction. Used Pokemon Communication, revealed a Pokemon, put it back in the deck, and then said, well, do I have to take a Pokemon? Because now you know that there's a Pokemon in my deck. But as soon as that Pokemon hits your deck, it is now private knowledge. And even though we as players and observers know that there is technically a Pokemon in that deck, it is private knowledge. So technically, we do not know anymore that Justin has a Pokemon in deck. So you were able to fail the Pokemon Communication, which is a very, very funny interaction. But there we see the knockout on the Uxie. Again, I forget which attack is which, but this is the one that does damage to bench Pokemon. I think it's just damage to, it's like an overrun style attack, does damage to the active, and then also to bench Pokemon. And we see double plus power committed to the Steelix, and double heads on the Moo Moo Milk, healing 60 damage. Not sure if we've already used Nurse Call, but we are setting up for a big attack here. And I think so we're doing 50 with that Expert Belt, 60, 70. And Hippowdon, I believe, has 130 HP. So if we get one more plus power, this is going to be a knockout. Also accelerating the energy into play. Did we get there? Wow. 3 plus powers going to take down this Hippowdon and accelerate that energy into play. This is huge. Down goes the Hippowdon level X. Just look at that Steelix. Three plus powers getting discarded, but it has like 12 cards attached to it with the plus powers. Just very, very funny. And that is just menacing. That is terrifying to see this Steelix taking a knockout with its first attack, just using to accelerate energy into play. And Justin gonna play Felicity's, trying to find, I don't even know what your avenue back is at this point. I guess Expert Belt is a pretty good start. If you can find the Hippowdon again and you can level it up into the level X, you can actually push yourself out of range of a KO with the 150 HP. I think the Steelix would be out of range regardless. We did see the 3 plus powers, so I think Darin would need the final plus power, but wow, Darin playing lightning fast, using some life herbs, trying to heal up, does flip double tails, another life herb. We did know that this was the 6. Yep, we did confirm that it was the 6, since they did kind of bump into the damage already on the active. But yeah, Darin playing lightning fast. Time was kind of running low at this point. We see the Nurse Call on the Blissey. I think Darin just kind of thinning cards out at this point, and then also just saying, well, we did actually have rules for the timing in this tournament, so it was going to be whoever's ahead on prizes after your 3 turns. So Darin just kind of racing to deny prizes while also taking more prizes to just ensure that they win the game, of course. And then we saw the Gaia Crush knockout on the only Hippowdon in play. So Justin is, I know we said before Justin's board was so developed, but now you look at the board disparity and you have one massive Steelix versus a Baltoy, an Uxie, and a Claydol. And just like that, this board completely flipped. Justin putting down a Spiritomb. I don't even know if it just feels too late at this point. Darin down to 3 prizes, and you're gonna just start offering up prizes to the Steelix. And wow, Darin just draw, attach, attack. Once again, just trying to ensure that they take all of the prizes, or at least enough to be ahead of Justin for when time is eventually called. There was a bit of a time extension in this because we did have to get a ruling on that sand reset, but yeah, just gonna be a concession from Justin. Not really anything you can do against lone Steelix.